Okay, welcome back to Shooting It Straight. If you may be thinking about getting a Glock police trade-in or law enforcement trade-in from one of the several dealers that offer this deal, then this video might be for you. Now, I happened to recently purchase another Glock Model 22, which this is my old one. And I purchased it this time from an online source featuring, law enforcement trade-ins. Now, I didn't really need another Glock 22, but the advertised price of well under $300 was just too good for me to pass up, especially since it's a Gen 4, which is personally by far my favorite Glock generation. And it comes with steel factory Glock night sights. So I thought I would put together a video on this topic for those of you that might be looking for a Gen 4 Glock, but just can't afford to plunk down, $550 or $600 for a new one. And yeah, you can find some privately used Glocks for around $450 or so if you look hard enough. But the used Glocks in the gun shops here in my area are priced not much lower than a brand new Glock, so you're not really saving anything. Now, some of the local gun shops in your area may deal in law enforcement agency trade-ins or police trade-ins also. And if so, that's a possible plus, because then you have an opportunity to actually go in and see and examine the Glock before you buy it. Now, online vendors or dealers such as GT distributors and AIM Surplus and the like, well, they will usually have law enforcement trade-ins for less cost than what you could probably get at your local gun stores. You order it online, they ship it to your FFL, then you go pick it up. They're not going to turn that firearm over to you until you complete a background check, right? Now, the negative here, though, is that you really don't know what sort of condition your Glock may be in when you buy it. So, you are taking a bigger risk that way online, but the two vendors I just mentioned, AIM Surplus and GT Distributors, they usually do an acceptable job of examining the Glocks for function and condition before selling them online. And any guns that they find to be significantly beat up, well, those guns are displayed on the facility's sales floors for walk-in customer purchases, and usually at a further discounted price. Now, some vendors, such as Sportsman's Outdoor Superstore, well, they have their groups of Glocks, law enforcement trade-ins, categorized. They'll have a category of fair condition, up to good condition, and all the way up to very good condition. And the prices will reflect that. And now, still other vendors may charge a nominal fee, usually about $25, for an employee to personally hand select one of those Glocks for you from their stock room. Not all will do that, but there are some. Now, this one is a law enforcement trade-in, and I just got it not too long ago, just last week. And I got it with its original plastic case, and not all will come that way. But, like all law enforcement trade-ins, you can expect to see varying degrees of wear, maybe some light scratches, maybe some minor dings, and so forth. Here's why. Street-level cops spend a lot of time patrolling in their police cars, and the seatbelt buckle let's say if they're right-handed, the seatbelt buckle can create scuffs and scratches right here on the grip. Now, as can running through the woods, wrestling on the pavement with a suspect, that can add some dings and scratches in it. Now, normal holster wear that you'll see right here, well, that can be seen on the finish of the slide, and that's to be expected. Now, some of the police trade-in Glocks can be almost like new, maybe very little to almost no wear, no scratches or dings and so forth. Those Glocks were most likely assigned to the higher ranking administrative cops, better known as desk jockeys or pencil pushers. Now, I got very lucky with this one. It has almost no visible wear. It's got zero scratches or dings anywhere on it. All you can see is very light holster marring or swipes here on the slide from holstering and unholstering. And you have to look for that. And you can barely see any barrel wear at all. So, this one was no doubt issued to one of those desk jockey cops. The single 15-round magazine it came with, well, it also looks brand new. Spring is still very strong. Now, I was able to determine that this particular Glock 22 was manufactured in 2013, but it was never issued until several years later. And now this is not unusual, because my other Glock 22 right here sat on a dealer's shelf for 5 years before I bought it brand new. Now, this Glock was originally purchased by the Temple Terrace Police Department, which is a small police department in Florida, and I even know the name of the officer that it was issued to. The gun was very clean, at least until I detail stripped it, and we'll get into that momentarily. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this particular Model 22 came with steel Glock factory tritium night sights, which is very common among law enforcement agencies. Now, it's important to note that most tritium night sights on these law enforcement handguns will usually be pretty dim by the time it gets to us, by the time we buy it. Now, this is due to the decay of the tritium inside the glass vials in the sights here. Let me quickly explain how that happens, because I have known at least 3 cops that would leave their Glock sitting under a desk lamp all night, thinking that that desk lamp was recharging the night sights. And it doesn't work that way, and I had to explain to them why. So I'll run through it very quick. It's going to get a little geeky, a little nerdy. But tritium is a radioactive isotope of hydrogen that experiences beta decay, which emits electrons as radiation. The electrons hit the phosphors that line the glass tubes in these sights, causing it to glow. All right? The more the tritium decays, the less electrons are emitted. Thus, the glow begins to gradually dim. Now, it generally reaches its halfway point of its lifespan at about 12 years. So the sights will be at least 50% dimmer in 12 years or so, to the point of it barely being usable. However, I really don't care for night sights. I just want the sights to be constructed of steel, not polymer. The tritium sights on this one are pretty much dead. Right? They are simply not usable any longer. Now, this Glock was manufactured in 2013, but the night sights may be even older than that. They may have been held in storage before being put on this Glock. Of course, I could put new sights on it, but I just chose to put a blob of high visibility white sight paint on the front sight, since the front sight's really all that I use anyway, or mainly. Now, a lot of these police trade-in Glocks may be very dirty, and you might get only one magazine with it. Now, the fact is that the majority of cops are not really gun guys. They fire their Glocks only during the mandatory semi-annual or quarterly pistol qualification courses. They don't clean them because they don't know how to, and they really don't want to know how to. This is where a decent sergeant should step in and correct this negligence. But that's a different soapbox. At any rate, I'm not overly concerned about cosmetics such as normal slide wear areas, smaller light scratches, or how many magazines came with it. I just want it to work properly, and I don't want to have to get the slide refinished. As long as it's in proper functional condition and I don't have worries about corrosion issues, I'm all happy. So now we can get down to business. Now, of course, I have no idea how many rounds have already been put through this Glock before I got it. Finish wear can only give limited information, so my normal routine whenever acquiring any used handgun is generally the same, in that I will always completely disassemble and inspect all components. Then I will thoroughly deep clean the entire pistol, which includes the frame, the slide, and each individual component. Now, with this Glock, as I said, the gun looked very clean, but once I broke it completely down, detail stripped it, it was immediately apparent that it had never once had a deep cleaning. It's never had anything more than a wipe down and a patch ran through the bore. Everything was caked in sticky, oily crud. Gun oil saturated every component. There was so much oil in the firing pin channel that the polymer liner fell out. This is the polymer liner that rests at the end of your firing pin channel, and it's these liners are designed specifically to remain snug in that channel, although some might not. And most people are not even aware that this liner even exists because you can't see it. All of this is what happens when you over lubricate your Glock. With this one, I completely stripped the frame and dunked the entire frame in a bowl of warm, soapy water, Dawn dish detergent, water, and toothbrush cleaned it. All right. I do the same with other polymer parts such as the channel liner, spring cups, back plate, spacer sleeve. It's just quicker and easier for me to do it this way, and then I completely dry those parts off. For the steel components like the extractor, the firing pin, the springs, trigger safety, and extractor depressor plunger, well, I just dunk and shake it in a cup or a small pan of regular bore solvent for a minute, then hit it with a toothbrush and dry it off. I also thoroughly clean out and dry the firing pin channel, the extractor depressor plunger channel, the weep hole, and the extractor space. And I use Q-tips and pipe straws for that. My next routine step is to replace certain components automatically right off the top. Generally, I'll go ahead and replace all the coil springs, including the entire recoil spring assembly. And I did that with this one. And it also includes the trigger spring, the firing pin spring, the firing pin safety, and the spring that it attaches to, and the extractor depressor plunger spring. Normally, this would not include the magazine spring, the magazine release button spring, or the slide lock spring. Those are flat springs, except for in certain ones. The other original components, such as the firing pin itself, the extractor depressor plunger itself, the trigger bar and cruciform, and the housing, the locking block, and the slide stop lock, and all that. All that'll remain since they appeared to be in good functioning condition. Also, for the 40 caliber or 357 SIG Glocks, I will and did in this case put in new locking block pin and a new trigger pin. Since those pins have been known to fracture, over time after heavy use on occasion, I went with the chrome or stainless steel pins and slide lock and slide stop lever here just to add some contrast. And finally, I also either use new factory magazines, OEM magazines, or in the very least I will replace the springs in the used magazines. Glock OEM replacement parts and components are relatively inexpensive, so to me these preventive measures are a no-brainer when it comes to getting a previously owned Glock. Alright, so that's pretty much all I have regarding buying police trade-in handguns, Glock in this case. There are pros and cons to it. When getting one from an online dealer that specializes in this, you can find some very good bargains, but you really don't know if they will send one that is in really great condition or one that's kind of beat to hell. Buying online is no doubt a risk, but I have to say that from what I have seen, heard, and read, most people seem pleased with the experience and have no regrets. I know I don't. So, is a police trade-in Glock right for you? Well, it can be, especially if you don't want to or can't sink a lot of money into it for a new Glock. I took a gamble and got one, and I'm just shickled titless that mine happened to be in excellent condition. A few new guts thrown in it, and I'm ready to Glock and roll. Alright, I hope I was able to forward some useful info to you. Get up with me next time here at Shooting It Straight. And until then, ciao.